Okay, it should be recording now. And yeah. Okay, so welcome to this lesson of Shrine School. We're going to be doing an art lesson called Understanding Comics, where we're going to be going over comic book fundamentals and comic book theory a little bit, just to give like your comics a little bit of an edge, and make them read better and stuff like that. So we'll go over that. But before that, I just want to do a little bit of a spiel about Shrine itself. So this is our website. This is the Shrine website. Okay. Well, we'll have Kaylee join us a little bit later for the Scarlet one over there. She's a genius as well, so she might have some really great input for this lesson. So I'm pretty lucky. I have Bati and the Scarlet one with us. So yeah, this is the Shrine Comics website. So we do Shrine School for free. If you like what we're doing here and you want to support us, the best way and the way we would love you to do that is to make sure you go to the Shrine website and read our comics. And that's about it, really. So this is the Shrine website itself. May 1st, it's still May 1st today. So today, you'll see on the cover here, Dimensional Resources just launched. That's done by the Scarlet one, who's in the chat. She might join us a little bit later. But this is an incredible series if you haven't read it yet, so I'd recommend please go check it out. If you scroll down, we've got a whole bunch of series. So today we also have From the Forgotten, which is updating. And then every Saturday from now on, Dimensional Resources will update. And every day of the week we'll have content, new comic book content. So we have Xero Mondays, Tuesdays Mutton Chop, Wednesdays My Werewolf System, Thursdays Punch Drunk, Apophenia Fridays, Saturdays we got From the Forgotten, Dimensional Resources, and Sundays we have Cave King. So yeah, if you like what we're doing here, please go visit the site. Please comment. Please let us know. Go into the Discord, Discord channels for each of the series and let us know what you think. We're working really hard to make sure that you have some really cool free comic book content. So yeah, we would really love it if you would do that for us. So that's the beginning of the spiel. So let's just get into the lesson. So I have a PowerPoint presentation here because I want to be as fancy as possible. This is only very short. It's a bit loud and fuzzy. Is anybody else finding me too loud? I can turn myself down a little bit, I think.
No, I think it's fine.
I think this is like a little bit of a bug that happens when I have OBS running at the same time. So hopefully people can deal with it. Maybe they can turn my volume down a little bit. So I apologize for that. All right, so comic and manga fundamentals, that's what we're going to be going over today. This is only a really short presentation and we'll get into the, composing some pages fairly quickly. And then I'd love to talk with you guys and get some of your feedback. Well, your input. So a few notes about the lessons today. Today we're not focusing on art skill. So if you think you're not a good drawer, that's not a big issue here. It's, we're going to be going over a lot of theory about how comic books are made, and you don't actually have to be able to, you don't have to be good. I've lost my word. Sorry. I was at a wedding last night. You don't have to be good at drawing to compose a good page and stuff like that. So, yeah, don't worry about your art skill. This is a good lesson for both artists and writers. And we'll go over that in a bit. But knowing a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, if you're a writer, it'll help you write a better script for your artists. And like anything to do with art, everything we covered today, they're not rules necessarily. I think rules would be sort of like a good way to describe them, but they're not. Obviously, you can break them, but these serve as really good starting points. um, for everyone. And um, yeah, so there's no hard and fast rules here. And then the last point we need to make is today's lesson will focus on traditional comic book pages. So we won't be talking about stuff like the webtoon format. Um, so we might do that another day if that's what something if that's what people are interested in. But today we're focusing on sort of like the page by page comics because they're a completely different can of worms. So I just wanted to ask the chat, Daz Mighty, I might unmute you so you can join us in the conversation. But I would like to ask you guys, like, what do you think the difference between comics versus manga is? I think this is really good to sort of establish before we move forward. So, if anybody wants to just jump in, um, yeah, you can talk now.
Well, honestly, from my perspective, what I've noticed in the difference regarding comics and manga is um, not really a big one. At least my knowledge is not that vast when it comes to the difference between comics and manga.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is the difference in where it originates. But I would say there is a massive difference, at least in the beginning, in terms of style and formatting and organization.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Does anybody else have any input on versus comics versus manga?
I was gonna say something similar in the sense that it's most of what I've seen is a stylistic difference and how at least the two cultures, the Western and the Eastern, approach it.
Mm-hmm.
The manga style leans into the limitations of having it needing to be produced quickly with the black and white, while the American style or just general Western comics know that they have more time to make it,
Mm-hmm.
so they kind of the styles reflect those limitations.
I would actually say that the differences between the two of them are at certain times more distinct, but currently I would say there's been a large blending, just because of you know how internet culture and things are globally.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large blending between the styles. So over the course of history of both sort of mediums, you'll see you'll see like with manga and then comics, you'll see a lot of like shared cartoon inspiration.
Mm.
And then as they move more toward the 80s, you see a sort of divergence where comics, traditionally stick to a more anatomically correct and realistic art style with focus on minimalistic colors. But when it comes to manga, you see manga become more insular,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to enjoy the artists start to form an idea of their style within themselves rather than by taking a look at like things from other comics. But I think as you exit the 80s, you see an interest in what everybody else was doing. So there's been a real merger, right,
Mm-hmm.
of certain characteristics and certain stylizations between the two of them. So I think that you know they're both mediums. I think they're really the same medium, but on just different ends of a spectrum currently.
Yeah, and that's I think you just hit the nail on the head. Hold on, Katan, I just unmuted you if you want to say some stuff, but I just want to bounce off what was just said. Then inherently they're the exact same medium, right? Like comics and manga are the exact same medium. And it's something that the Scarlet One also said in the chat. But I think everybody sort of agrees that there are differences, and I think it's more than something stylistic, right? Like, because there's been Western comics where people do like mimic the manga style, the art style, but it's still Western comics because it was made in the West, sort of thing. Um, but I think the real difference is, I guess, the process of making them, because a lot of manga is a singular creator or a set of creators working on one thing, for as long as they want, on really tight schedules with huge page counts. What ends up happening is that how they produced changes how they uh, are presented. So, for example, right, My Hero Academia is a hero comic in the same sense that, like, Spider-Man is a hero comic. But since it's one person's vision that happens on a weekly basis, you have this one continual through line, while Spider-Man is, you've got multiple people working on it. Sometimes Spider-Man's the Avengers, which is a completely different creative team, and they're trying to, like, make this all fit together. And because it's also on a monthly schedule with a very low page count, the way that they, put the comic together and do the pacing is completely different, right? Like, because you need to have, if you're doing a Western, floppy comic, you want the reader to, in those 22 pages, and it's not a lot, feel like they've had an entire story in that run. But because in Japanese manga, especially with, like, the big titles that come up and Jump, they know that there's going to be another chapter next week, so you can, like, stretch things out for a very long time because you're not letting the reader wait. So this is where I think the way that they're produced and the way that they're consumed by us is how they start merging into different things. So technically they're just drawings on a paper with panels and speech bubbles, right? So fundamentally, as a medium, they're the same, but because they're consumed differently, it sort of, changes. So, like, I think it's like TV and movies are the same medium. They're both film, but how they're consumed, one is like over time through episodes over a long thing, while one's just a standalone movie. They sort of diverge. So in that sense, that's where I think the difference of comics versus manga comes out. So I wanted to bring this up because people, I think there's this idea that they're completely different mediums when they're actually the exact same medium. So I wanted to bring this up because a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is for both of them, right? So, like, if I use a Western comics example, those things can be used in manga. So I just wanted to make sure that these were all together. Oh yeah, we'll move on. We've talked about that for a little while now. Whew, I'm a little out of breath. All right, so there's things to keep in mind when you're making comics or manga. Comics are a visual medium, and I think if something's a visual medium, you should apply the show don't tell mentality to something, right? And I think it's very easy for people to get caught up in having captions that explain what's happening in the panel when your art should be the one that's showing that, or having characters explain. Like, for example, if somebody's using a key in the door, they don't necessarily need to say, look, I'm putting the key in the door right now. You can just show that. And so, and it's funny, I think artists tend to overwrite their comics. Like, writers are pretty good about it, but if an artist, somebody who writes and draws their own series, they tend to, like, add way more text than they need to. But so that's something you want to keep in mind when we're making comics, is that it's a visual medium. So you want to show the audience what's happening in the story instead of telling them what's happening in the story. Obviously, there are times when it's good to tell them if you want to do, like, a time skip and briefly sum up what happened. But even then, if you can find a way to show what happened very quickly through, say, like a montage, that might be the better route to do it. As a medium, comics have their own advantages and disadvantages. So, we'll keep that in mind, and we'll talk about that as we start putting some pages together. And then this is the last point, is something, and I don't know if necessarily relevant to everybody here, but I wanted to put it in because I've known a lot of people that don't like this. Might sound obvious, make comics to make comics, but a lot of people don't actually do this. For example, there are some people who are like, I'm hoping to pitch a movie. So they make a comic of it so it's easier for them to pitch a movie. Or somebody like all they want to do is make an anime. So they'll make a comic so that they can try and pitch their anime. And so what ends up happening here is that you're not focusing on the comic part of it. You're focusing on you want it to become in the future, that you don't take advantage of the medium that you're using, right? It's just a springboard for something else. So if that's your mindset when you're going into comics, that you're hoping that this will springboard an anime for you, I don't think this is the right way to do it. I think that the best way to do this, like if you wanted to just make an anime, I think it would be better for you to just go make an anime, right? Like, learn how to storyboard and put together stuff that way. So yeah, I think you truly have to love the medium if you want to work in it, because working on comics is hard, and it takes a lot of work. So yeah, I've known a few people who want to make a movie, and they made a comic first, and none of them worked out. So that's just a little word of warning. So these were things that I wanted to cover just before we go over some stuff. So here we go. Let's open up Clip Studio. Okay. So I have a page here. Sorry, I'm just trying to mentally put my thoughts together. Oh, somebody wrote in the writing text chat. Oh, wait a second. Okay, that was Bati. So when making comics, this is actually the most daunting thing for me. So when you have the blank page, so you're going to have to put something in here, whether you already have a script or you have something in your mind. This is what you're going to start off with, and it's a whole lot of nothing, and you have to turn this into something. So yeah, this is, I think, the scariest part of making comics, the worst part for me. Once you have something down pat, for me, things start flowing better. But when I start off with this page, oh man, like I'm intimidated right now. So let me just put some panels on it just to at least start doing. Here we go, frame. Oh, why isn't my? Oh, there we go. All right, so let's talk about the comics medium. So when you're first designing a page, you want to think about what you want to achieve with this page, right? Here, and so I'm going to talk about a few things that, a few rules. Well, not rules. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used that word. A few things that we should do to try and establish what's happening in the page. So, if this was the first page in a comic, and anybody in the chat can talk, what do you think the first panel? It doesn't have to be, but like usually, what would you want the first panel to do on that page?
Establish location.
Yes, establishing location is really, really important, right? You want to let the reader know where things are. You don't have to do it that way, especially if you want to hide the location. Like, if the location is a reveal down the road, but if it's not a reveal if it's not like some surprise that you want to reveal a little bit later, then establishing a location is probably one of the first things that you want to do. So the cool thing about comics versus, say, something like film is like, so in the film, you have like your frame and you want to use that entire frame the whole time. But in comics, right, we have this page, and how you divide this page up is completely different, right? We can have giant panels. So like if I just do like a panel split here, you know, we have two big panels, or you can have like a really small panel, all this kind of stuff. So you have to decide what you want to do. So like if we're using this to define a location and set up the scene, what kind of panel sizes would you use? Anybody can, you know, say anything at any time. Here, I'll give some examples. So if you think the location is like super important to you, super important to the story, and it's not just setting, you know, just telling the reader where they are very quickly so you can have your little scene, you probably want to have like a large establishing shot, right? So you can do something like this, and then maybe the rest of the comic goes like this, and then this large panel here is your establishing shot. You know, this is, yeah. So Anthony is saying he tends to use large and wider panels, and so in most cases, yes, I would agree with that. Like if this is the first time that somebody has come to this scene or come to this location, it's really good to have just one big panel that you can put as much information into, right? Like you can show the architecture, you can show the weather there, you can show how many people are around, like is it a bustling city or is it abandoned? There are so many things that you can tell the reader just from one shot in one establishing shot, which sort of sets up the tone for the rest of the scene. But then again, sometimes that establishing shot is not important. Like if this was a page in the middle of the comic and you're just switching locations, you might be okay with just an establishing shot, which is very small. Like this, which like might have like, so if it's your character's house, like the top of their house here, let me just draw something. Like, so if it's a location that people are always going back to, you can just have like the top of the house with the chimney, and then you have the thing. And if it's something that people have seen multiple times, this might be enough to let them know where they are. So, you know, this is like a really important first panel to put in your page. So, you know, always think about an establishing shot. But I want to go on to something that does anybody know what comic flow is?
Yeah, comic flow is is arranging the elements on your page, you know, the characters, the frames, in order to get draw the reader's eye through a page and sort of in a way that sort of both controls, you know, the pacing as well as like you know, emphasizes certain narrative elements, visual elements, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's comic flow is basically the flow that your eye would follow to read the story. Now in the West, what is the traditional traditionally you read from left to right, right? And so if I set up a quick, oops, I'll do it this way. So if I set up a quick panel here, we know using the rules of how we read things from left to right that when we read this, it would go like that, like that, like that, right? So let's do another example. So in this one, you know, we also know that it goes from like this to this to this to this. So setting up the panels is like the first way we can start setting up the reader's comic flow, right? So your panel placement is really, really important, and it's like the first thing that you do when you're drawing a comic. So I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to number them, and I want to hear what people think the order is to reading this. And we're using a left to right. Okay. That's in no particular order, by the way. So, all right. So I'd love to hear from people. So if we're reading this way, this is our reading. We're using the Western comics. If it was manga, let's imagine it would be like this. Can someone tell me? I just want to hear guesses. How would they read that just using the panels themselves?
You start at number 1 and look down to 2, and then you know, with the Western one, then look right to 3.
Does anybody else have any differences to that?
I would say, with how they're arranged, you would probably your eye's drawn to 3 because it's larger than 1 and 2. So starting at the top corner, you'd probably read 1, 3, and then go back to 2.
Okay.
Just because you're pulled by the weight of the whatever would be in the third panel because it's so much larger.
Now, I you know, you make a good point there. Like, there's a way to make this more clear, and that would be drawing the stuff, drawing what should be in these panels. But I think the fact that Bati said it should be 1, 2, 3, and then Tubbsy said it should be 1, 3, 2 shows that this panel structure is super complicated. And every time I see it in a manga or a comic, I literally go nuts. I have no idea how I'm supposed to read this.
That's because in both of these cases, they're supposed to be inversed for their native language.
Yeah, that's why. So this is the Japanese one, right?
Right, exactly. So that bottom one, like, you should be doing it basically, I guess, the way they're ordered, not the numbers, but way they're ordered, you would read it from, like, you would align the panels that way in a Western manga, and you would align the panels the top way in a Japanese manga, because it would read better to just have 1 big panel and then 2 that are, it's much more clear cut that way.
Exactly. So like in Western comics, this is much clearer. This one here is much clearer, while in Japanese comics, this one's much clearer because you go this one, this one, this one. I think nobody would mistake that. But I have literally seen Japanese manga do it this way, and it drives me nuts. I have no idea which way to read it. So it's something that you really need to keep in mind when you're setting up your panels. How do you want the reader to read this, and is it clear? And so, yeah, this is like the best example of it, because how people read, and I've read comics wrong because I've guessed wrong. Like, once you get to something like this, you're literally like, okay, well, it could be 1, 3, 2. I'm just going to go for it this time, and you might be wrong. So, you know, if you want to do this kind of panel setup, then you, think about it very, if it's the right way to do it first. Maybe doing it, maybe reversing it might be better. But then again, that changes the whole thing, right? If you want the third panel, so if you want the reader to go this way, the reason that the third panel is the biggest is because there's like a bigger reveal on that panel. So what might be a better way to draw this? I think the clearest way would be hold on, sorry. Like, if you wanted to do something similar, that's probably the clearest way to do it. But then again, this is the cool thing about the comics medium. One of the reasons why you might want it to be like this is that you want the tall panel. And which is different to, say, film, right? Like in film, we only have the widescreen at the moment. So you know, of course you can do it like vertically if you're doing like a phone app or something like that. But when we're talking about movies, like going to the cinema, you have the widescreen, so you have to work with that, and you have panning shots. But in comics, it's a static image, and so you want to take advantage of the entire space that you have here. So if you want something, you know, if you want to show something's really tall, you would put it in a tall panel to just emphasize that sort of thing. So if you have like your characters here and you got a really tall building or something like that, or a mech, you would put it in a tall panel opposed to something like this. It's like if this was our character and this is the mech, you've got all this wasted space. But then again, also you could also put speech bubbles here. So there's so many things that you need to consider when you're putting your comic together.
I just want to mention there is one thing you can do with that like obnoxious panel setup, which is if you want all the panels to basically be taking place at the same time so that they can be read in any order, it like doesn't matter then. So you could have like both the two blocks on the left be reaction images, and then the big image is what they're reacting to, and it doesn't matter if you read one and then the other or backwards. It's all happening at the same time, so it works that way.
You bring up a really excellent point, and so I have prepared some pages. Hold on, let me see. Which is this one. This is a page from Xero, King of Thieves, and like what the Scarlet One just said, these two panels at the top here are happening simultaneously. So that's something that you can also do. Like, for people who are in the chat, is that clear that those two are happening simultaneously, or do you think that this is happening first and this is, you know, don't feel free to insult my art. It's fine.
Yeah,
I would say it's
oh,
go on.
sorry. I think just because they have like the same reaction or facial expression, like it's pretty clear that these are simultaneous images.
Yeah. Thank you. And so, like, there's a. Yeah, you talk. You talk.
Okay, so I would say that having the text go through both panels is a it links the both of them in a way. Like I was going to suggest that with by having like text overlap between two panels,
Mm-hmm.
that you can you can use that to direct and link two panels together. So the panel split is to show the distance between the characters, but that they're doing something very similar and that they're coming at each other. So it works incredibly well.
Yeah. Oh. And so you're right. So the text here was the clue that I gave to the reader that this is happening simultaneously. And then, in theory, after they clash in the middle, because I've set up here that these things are happening simultaneously, when you get down to the bottom panel, you also just assume that they're happening simultaneously. Like, obviously, you can guess with context, but sort of, you know, I'm trying to do this like hourglass thing where, hold on, I'm trying to, let's see. Let me put it in here. Where I'm sort of trying to get the reader's attention, sort of like this. Whoops, why isn't that red? Oh, I know why. This. No. It doesn't matter. It can be in black and white. So like this. That sort of thing. So this is part of comic flow, which we were sort of talking about here. So, you know, as the Scarlet One was saying, if things are happening simultaneously, you can get away with something like that weird panel structure that we were talking about before. Now let me see. I have other comics, other pages that we can analyze here. Okay, so this is another one of mine from Xero, King of Thieves. So we were talking about in Western comics, you read left to right. This is my attempt, and I might have failed at it. My attempt of, changing the direction that the reader is reading, how they're reading the panel. So what I want to do is have them start from here, because we start from where we're going left to right. Once they reach 0 here, then we move down, and then he has his reaction where he goes back and gets it, picks it up, and then he shoots this way. So you're sort of going with an S thing. So I've done that. Well, I've attempted to do that by drawing the reader's eye to the point of action of what's happening. So we have this, we get the reaction, then he gets attacked, he jumps back, grabs the thing, then uses it. And then obviously, like something else, because we go left and right, subconsciously going right on the page is sort of progressing forward. So I wanted to give the feeling that he was going backwards. So I had to make sure that he was going from right to left here. So like he was retreating to grab his stick, that he can use. Does anybody feel that, this could have failed, but I just want to, can people see what's sort of happening here?
Yep, I think it works. I think it's pretty successful.
Yeah. So like, even though this is a Western manga and the reading is supposed to be left to right, I have flipped that because of the point of action and where the reader's eye is following at that point. But this doesn't necessarily get pulled off, but this is not easy to pull off. And like I said, I'm not entirely sure if I pulled it off, because traditionally you would have to read it like this. So you might have a double take, but this is sort of the thing that we want to do. So there's not much going on here, and there's more going on this part of the page, which then it automatically leads down to this. So, the comic flow is set up by the panels that we create, and then the artwork we created, and then the final thing is speech bubbles. And speech bubbles also have sort of the same problem sometimes as panels. So you have to be careful where you put stuff. Let's look at this from a left to right perspective. So if we have two characters talking here, with this, and I'll just give the numbers. In what order are you supposed to read this in? Yeah, feel free. Anybody can say anything.
2, 1, 3.
2, 1, 3. Anybody else? Nobody? I don't think there's any wrong answer to this. It's what the layout is 1, 3, 2. I think you mixed that up. Anthony is saying how. So usually, I would say if you're setting up your speech bubbles in a comic, the rule of thumb is that you want to start from here. You want to go from the top and go that way, like how you're reading a book. So if you wanted this to be clearer, but even then, this is not clear. So yeah, this is it's a very 2, 1, 3. Do you think, just by looking at this, do you think this is clearer? than what we had set up before?
I think if the 3 overlapped like more with the next panel, it would convey that it would be red last, but it's still kind of unclear.
It's super unclear. So this is another thing that we need to think about when we're doing comic flow. Like, how could we possibly make this clear to the reader that in which order it's happening? Like, I think people can sort of correct themselves by reading the dialogue and going, oh, this should be said here. But you don't want, you shouldn't. Oh, you can't unmute? Hold on. Oh, you should be able to unmute. I've already set you to unmute. Are you on push to talk? What's the button to push to talk? Okay, I've just muted you and I've unmuted you again. You should be able to talk. Everybody else is fine. Okay, try now. You're unmuted. Katon. Bati, do you think you can help me out with trying to get him unmuted so I can continue? All right. So yeah, there are a lot of different okay, well you can write until you figure that out. So this is hard, right? Like, so for example, if we wanted character A to say the first thing and character B to say this, whoops. Oh, this is supposed to be an eraser. So we want it to be A speaks, then B speaks, then A speaks. Even if you did it like this, that's super confusing because it looks like B is speaking twice again. So this is something else that you need to think about when you're setting up your panels and you want good comic flow. Maybe this setup is not the right thing for you. This really works for, like, just A saying one thing and B saying one thing. I know some people can get over this by having unique speech bubbles. So, like, for example, if A was circles and B was sort of like angular bubbles, then you can sort of, work out the flow that way. And it could even just be like that. But I think if you read One Piece, he does a really good job of making sure that everybody's in place, that when you read it through, you won't, even though there's so much going on, you know who's saying what and in what order. So yeah, I do want to have a look at some other pages. Sorry, this lesson's been all over the place, but I hope people have found it interesting. I've liked the discussion. This is a page from Apophenia by Schizomi, and this is sort of like that weird obnoxious panel order when it's done correctly, right? So we have the long tall panel, then you have this, then you have this. And this is also, she also is created, let me see if I can draw on top of it. So we've got this panel here, and then we go to this speech bubble, and we sort of follow the character's eyes here. And so what I really like about this is that we have Tiki's reaction here, and then we go to the back of Tiki's head, and then you can see what Tiki's seeing. And so you've got this like really awesome flow, and it's like these eyes are leading you down to the back of Tiki's head, so then you can see what Tiki's seeing, and then you have this like really cool, motion of the character turning, so you can see that they're sort of turning around. So I thought this is, I've pulled this one out because I thought the flow is really cool. Okay. Man, we got a lot to cover. Yeah, there's Yes. Yeah. So Anthony was saying, sorry, I'm going back to the old messages. Anthony was saying that the 3 speech bubbles at the top would have been better for that thing. So yeah, hold on. I'm all over the place. Let's see what else I have here. I can't believe we're nearly running the whole hour. Okay, so there are a couple things that I want to, cover quickly, and maybe we might need to do another lesson for this. Is that when you're setting up your pages, you want to treat each page, since it's a page turn, you want to treat each page sort of like its own mini story, in the sense that you kind of want to end on a cliffhanger on each page to make sure that the reader wants to turn the next page. So I've got a page from Mutton Chop here, which does this expertly. So all this stuff is happening here, and just by looking at the last panel, you have this voice, ominous voice in the black speech bubble here, so you know it's bad. Saying only the best for my pride and joy. And then you have Princess Phoebe. I think it's Princess Phoebe. She says that voice. What's really awesome about this is that this is not the end of the chapter. This is not the end of the chapter. This is just in the middle of the chapter, and then you want to see the reveal, and there's like a hint of the reveal here, and so you want to see it, therefore wanting to make you turn the page. So not all pages should finish on cliffhangers like this, but you do want to have something that's going to bring the reader in to the next page. So I think this is a really awesome example of it. Another really awesome way to do something like this as well is, we actually had a discussion within our creator Discord about something very similar, is by having turning the page is also a great way for us to transition to a different scene. So I wouldn't do a comic which is, unless you have a really good reason for it, that this panel up here is in scene A and then this panel here is in scene B. It just ruins the comic flow. You sort of don't know what's happening. It's like, where are we? Are they in the same place? A turn of the page is a great way to switch between a different scene without having, because before in old comics they used to have meanwhile and also in different, like in another place or over this location. You don't actually need to say something like that. And a great way to do like a page turn like that would be if one character was asking about another character that's in a different location, and then you turn the page and then you see that character in that new location. So I think this is a really good way sort of to end the page. And then also, so I've also got another page here from another series I do called High School Romance. And so I wanted to pull this one out because this is how we can use a comic book page to show time, because we have no idea how much time happens in between each panel. It's sort of like to fill the readers in, and a really excellent way to show that either time is moving or not moving or moving slowly is having similar things sort of happening in each panel. Whether it's like, if you want to have a character staring at something for a really long reaction shot, you might have 2 panels that are exactly the same, which then lets you know that in between those panels, all that character has been doing is staring the whole time. So I really wanted to highlight this page here. So this is in my series High School Romance, where there's a really awkward dinner, and I really wanted to highlight how awkward this dinner is. So this is Max and Candy are now a couple, so to set up context for the scene. And this is the first day, and this is the first time Candy has met Max's parents. So we have this scene here, this panel here, where they're sort of starting to eat food, and Max's mother says, "So kids, how's school?" and then we have this yeah fine, and then just this reaction shot, and then they're just eating, and then another reaction shot. Like, it just really emphasizes how awkward this moment is. And the great thing about doing stuff like this, where the panels are nearly exactly the same, is the subtleties of certain characters' reactions here. So, you know, I had so much fun drawing this page because I love how the parents react to what's happening. So that obviously you see here the mother, she's super attentive. She really wants to know how the two characters are going, and then when she doesn't get the response that she wants, we just got this really awkward stare, and then them looking at each other. And so, you know, this way you can sort of emphasize the really small moments by giving multiple panels of the exact same thing.
This is also a key way to controlling time in a comic. It tells you this slows down the pace of, you know, what's happening. It emphasizes how awkward it is just because this moment seems to go on for so much longer.
Absolutely.
And you know, if the next scene were an action scene, then you speed things up. You know, so it's important to vary up the pacing. You know?
Absolutely. And so you brought up an action scene, so I'm going to bring up an action scene now of something in Xero King of Thieves. Hold on, let's put this back to normal. Whoops, I don't. All right, I'll just close that. Hold on. So you brought up a really good point there. So obviously, what was happening in that previous page was that not much was happening over multiple panels. But see, in this one, I really wanted to show how intense the fight scene was. So what's actually happening here is a bunch of things are happening in the same panel, which then sort of emphasizes how fast they're moving and what's happening. And so just by adding these little sparks here, you can tell that they've sort of just been, and this is a technique stolen from Dragon Ball, which they, you know, in the anime is the yeah scenes where they're sort of like punching each other and it's super fast. But in the comic it's just a panel like this. And so many things are happening at once, which emphasizes how fast they're moving. And because it's in one panel as well, it's all happening like in the blink of an eye sort of thing. Like if we had different hits on multiple panels, then obviously the fight seems like it's going longer, right? And because we only have it on one, then obviously this is a really quick scene in the comic. So I actually had a plan. So Barty here, so I'm going over time because these conversations are being okay, let me quickly go over it. So I'm going to do a little bit of a layout to a script that Barty wrote. This is the writer of Mutton Chop. So he's got this 1-page comic here. And what I might do is I might share this comic in the chat so you guys can why am I not allowed to upload it? Let me retry. Hold on, maybe it's because I have it open. Let me close it first. There we go. Okay. So if you guys want to practice something, you can use it. So what I really like about the script here is that Barty hasn't given anybody, hasn't written how many panels this is. And I asked him to do that on purpose because I would really like to see how many different ways we could set this up. So here we have this is letting EXT is exterior, frozen tundra, it's daytime. And so Barty has written here, a snowy landscape with big rolling hills of snow and jagged ice peaks piercing the ground. We have a hero who's about 15 years old, young teenage boy with wide eyes wearing a green scarf, blue heavy winter jacket, and black pants, large flame decal buster sword looking battle damage. And so we have here, he's coughing up some blood. How I had the type advantage, and then a boot stomps on his head. The sides The side of his hero face, the side of the hero's face digs into the snow while he grits it in his teeth in anger. Then we have like a bad guy here, 35 years old, a weathered warrior wearing a dark gray double-breasted jacket with a golden, I don't know how to say this, Bati. Epaulets on his shoulders and wearing a polar bear skin as a cape as he stands there looking confident in his element. One eye looking down at the hero, the other eye milky white with a scar over it. And then he has a whole bunch of text here. And so this is something I wanted to show a script as well, because a lot of art, if I'm an artist writer, so I tend to just write onto the page as I'm doing it. But if you're given a script, one mistake that I used to do when I was much younger was I would just draw what's happening in the script, and then I'd forget that I have to put this somewhere. And so I really wanted Bati to do something with a really long speech bubble, because then you have to consciously figure out how you're going to fit this in with what's happening on screen. So not much has actually happened. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I just want to tell everyone, like, this is the format for writing a script for a TV show, by the way, because since I didn't have to specify panels, I didn't have to worry about that. So I just went with the TV format. Because if you write a script for comics, it's different. Like, I've looked it up. You got to worry about stuff like the panels then. So
it honestly depends on the writer. So there's no standardized format as much as there are writers who are either very particular in what they're trying to get across. So in which case, then they want to put certain panel things. So like Christopher Priest, he has a very particular style of writing there, where he uses like date and location panels, and he has those things very much worked out. And there are others who will do basically this, but it's like, well, the artist can't control so much of this information, or it really depends on the who's working with who, and how is the best way that they can work together.
Yeah, you're right here.
I just put an example of how I personally do script writing in the chat, so you can look at that too if you want.
There's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah, because I work with Anthony a whole lot, and so we're on, like, our wavelengths are so in tune. I can just describe stuff to him, and he'll know exactly what I gotta do. Like, sometimes I don't even need to write stuff down. It's just sending text, just telling him. So Tubbsy's right, and there's so many different ways to do it. It's just, you got to pick out the one that works best for you, and if you work with someone, what works best, for your partner,
Another neat thing you can look at if you're really interested in the different script processes is there's director's cut comics out there where they'll put the script, they'll put the the pencil phase, the finished art with no text, and then the art with the text. So you can do just a comparison to see how all the decisions were made and how they came to that process, and the different styles of scripting that occur.
So I'll show you another way. So this is how I scripted Xero. So this is a technique that a friend of mine taught me. This is way she does it. Her name is Queenie Chan. She's like a manga artist in Australia, very, very popular here. But she basically uses Excel and then breaks things down. So here we have how the chapters. This is like the description of each chapter, and she recommends making it as short as possible, so like a really short paragraph, and then you break it down to events, which are like page chunks. So I would write this here, like what happens in the first 8 pages, and then what happens in the next 4 pages, and then the next 4 pages, the next 4 pages, and then I would break them down again per page. So that's sort of how I do it. So there's all these different ways. And then another style that people tend to use is Marvel style, which is something that Stan Lee created. And Stan Lee would write a 1-paragraph description of what happens in the issue. And then he gives that to the artist. The artist would then draw that for 22 pages and then give it back to Stan Lee, who would then put the speech bubbles on top. So where he makes up the dialogue based on what the artist drew.
Which can lead to some pretty interesting and incongruent results. So there's famously a scene where there's a protest going on the college campus, and the artist, I believe Steve Ditko, had Spider-Man swing by and jeer at them. That's how he drew it. And Stan Lee looked at that and he's like, yeah, and Spidey shows his support to the college protesters. It was very, very interesting, very funny.
Man, we're just given like a lesson in writing pages and paneling and a historical lesson.
Yeah. So
charge extra for that.
So we're already going over time, so I'm gonna try and quickly break down this script. So Barty did hint to me how he would like this to go, but I'm gonna do this my own way. So I think so as we spoke before, I think the location of here is super important. He wrote it down specifically at the top, so it's something obviously that he wants to show off. And because I want to show a landscape, I'm going to do like a thin panel like that. All right, so we have... Okay, so this is sort of how I would break this down. Oops, that's a bit... All right, let me draw something here. So this is... I'd have the icy landscape here. Why won't it let me draw? Oh, it's because it's hidden. So we got our little ice, mountains, clouds. This is going to be real rough. And then I'm going to... Because our hero character in this feels like he's failed, I want to have like a panel of him standing here. He's got like anime hair, because of course he does. And sort of like this. And maybe he's on his knees. And he's got like his little sword. And then he's like breathing out air. He's puffing. And then we're going to have more like stalactites and whatever, ice here and stuff like this, wind blowing. So I want to have this to sort of establish that he's like... He feels small. He feels like he sort of failed. And then we have sort of like the close-up. Close-up here where he's now talking to himself. And he's super sad. And he's coughing up blood. Actually, so I would do the cough here, right? So he goes, and he's got the blood. So then we have like the cough. There we go. And then his super sad face here. Nice close up of the character here. And so what I might do here Now this is super quick, and there's probably many different ways. So interestingly enough, Bati imagined this as 3 panels, but I'm already making it 5 panels. So then his head gets smushed into the ground like this. So this is his like cheek, and then his mouth with the blood. He's got Cartman eyes. And then this is like the big head. His Doc Marten boots. Like this, and then it's like, can somebody give me a sound effect of what snow would be like if you're like smashing your head into snow? Is it like scritch?
Perfection.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that's what it sounds like.
There you go. And then I would have, so we have a lot of text in here. So let me see. I need to make sure it fits, so I'm just going to copy this text. Oh my god. Oh, my computer is hating OBS and Discord and all these things at the same time.
Yeah, they have a tendency to throw a fit when you use them in concert.
So much text. So much text. So this is a good thing that I started doing the holy moly. And then you'll find that like sometimes text looks much smaller in the Word document than it does I should have done a speech bubble first, because then it sort of fits it in itself. Okay, so that's not done perfectly because I'm trying to do this as fast as I can. So, but this is already taking up a whole bunch of space. So what I might want to do is rearrange the text so it's a bit more vertical. Okay, just for time's sake, let's just imagine that this is a bit more like that. And so what I want to do here is not completely reveal the villain, because I want to have the page turn. So even though we have sort of the description here, and I'm going to have like hints to the scar on his eye and then him looking down and his little cape, fluffy cape. And he's got his hand. This is his sword. He's got a big ass sword because he's very intimidating. This is his knee. I hope this is clear to people. My sketches are really bad.
No, I can pick it up.
And then we have the reaction shot of our hero as well. So this is sort of how me looking at it, how I would break down that panel, and then obviously I can make it more beautiful later. But I really wanted this panel here to be like a tall vertical panel, and then this one to be a wide one. And I'm purposely sort of obscuring the character here so that when we turn we don't know what the next page is because he didn't write the next page, but if we turn the next page, then we can reveal him a little bit closer, and so it gives that reader like, oh shit, I want to know what he looks like sort of thing. So I would keep him mostly in shadow, like he'd be sort of like this. But this is me sort of guessing what the next page would be. And also you have to try and keep the intent of the original writer. But this might be something that if you're an artist, you might want to talk to your writer and go, this is sort of the idea that I have. So would you be okay with me doing it this way, Bati?
Yeah. I like how you're able to get more pages out of this. I thought this was going to be a 3-panel page, but you extended it and you made it 5.
There you
and
go.
I like the way it looks.
So maybe one day I might actually draw this for real. Draw it out properly. So yeah, we sort of covered a lot of stuff today, and it was all over the place, but I hope people found it interesting and learned something. Please let me know how you feel, because I might make it a bit more structured. I am really tired, though. I got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning and started this at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I apologize for that, and my voice is a little bit dead because I've been singing all night. But yeah, I hope people have enjoyed what they saw today. Did you guys like it?
Definitely.
I liked it. I thought it was very informative.
Excellent. Well, I might go over my spiel a little bit. Did anybody have any pages that they did? Because I did say that we would review them. I'm happy to look at them. I might stop the recording soon. But did anybody have any pages that you would like? We have Anthony here and Bati and myself that we can look over and sort of give you guys feedback.
I got one.
Okay. All right. Well, while you send that in the chat, I'm gonna end this up here, and then we'll go through that. We'll go through that together. But yeah. So, again, Shrine School is something that is put together by us, the creators of Shrine, and we do it for free. So, if you would like to support what we do and like to get more content like this, then please go to our site and read our comics. We have new comics every day. Today we have Dimensional Resources launching, and we have more pages from the Forgotten. But then we also have Xero, Mutton Chop, My Werewolf System, Punch Drunk, Apophenia, Cave King. So we'll have something on the site brand new every day. Really awesome content. And we even have new series coming. We're not done yet, so that's all. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'm gonna end the stream or end the video.